And on the 8th day, God looked down on his planned paradise and said, I need a caretaker. So God made a farmer.
Howdy folks, Darren back with you here at Cross Timbers Farm. Welcome to 8th Day Chronicles. Glad to have you with us today. As promised, we're going to take you along with us as we do some restoration, which is very little, on our new to us hay tedder. And as you can see here in the background, we've got the right side guard reinstalled. We bought some new metric bolts to reinstall that guard, and it is installed and on and sturdy. And yesterday we had a nice sunny day, and we temperatures above normal. It was up in the mid 50s yesterday, right, in the mid part of the day, and the sun was out. And it is mid-December here, and I don't know what part of the country you're in, but here in the mountains of western North Carolina, for the last week, at least 7 days, maybe 8. Yeah, at least 8 days, maybe 9. We have had zero sun. It has been wet. We've had rain on top of rain on top of rain. And the days that it didn't rain very much, it was just really foggy and dreary and drizzly and just nasty days to be outside. And man, if you farm livestock this time of year, you know what I'm fixing to say. I had a guy asked me not long ago, said, what kind of farm do you have? And I said, a mud farm. Yeah, we have a mud farm right now. You have animals out, especially around feeders and water troughs and things, man. This time of year, the ground freezing and thawing some, and then rain on top of rain, man, it ends up in mud fast. And with dairy goats, we don't have as big a problem as you do with horses or cattle. When you put an 1,100 pound animal standing right in one area repeatedly, and the ground's soft from all that rain, you do end up in a bad mud hole. And with a 100 to 150 pound, 170 pound buck or doe, dairy goat, you don't have quite as much weight down pushing into that soft dirt, but still you have it. And but anyway, it is a kind of a dreary, foggy day here again today, and it's cold. It's just in the high 30s. And but yesterday we had a really nice day, and because of that, I was kind of in a rush, so I didn't film much of this. But I did get our tedder out yesterday while the weather was warmer, because I knew I had a very small window of warm weather. So I got the tedder out yesterday and degreased it and washed it, and used a pretty powerful degreaser and degreased all the areas that had grease kind of compacted and caked around it. And very pleased when I got all that grease off. Man, the paint and everything under it looks new. It looks fantastic. So very, very pleased with it. We did check the grease in the gearbox. And one thing that I did not know, this is the first tedder we've ever owned, and I figured there was gear oil in the gearbox, like a 90 weight gear oil or something like that, and you just use grease in your grease zerts for the bearings. But no, come to find out, I pulled the check plug on the gearbox and noticed it was full of grease, and I was like, and scratched my head, and I'm like, what the heck? I was expecting some gear oil to run out. And got the owner's manual, and by the way, Rhino tedders, if you don't have an owner's manual, you can go online, just type in a Rhino hay tedder and go to their website, and they have the owner manuals there for download. For basically any tedder they sell. But I found the manual for this one and downloaded, and to my surprise, the gearbox does not take gear oil, it takes grease. So that was a new one for me. This is the first piece of haying equipment, you know, or tractor equipment that I've ever seen that the gearbox takes grease and not oil. So, but anyway, it was full. So it's been well maintained. And I know when a guy test ran it for me that, you know, the gearbox and the bearings and everything, there was no whine, no wobble, no nothing. Everything seemed really tight, greased well. The gears running good. So, but we got everything cleaned up. We got the left side, I guess if you're looking at it, it'd be the right side, but it would be considered the left side guard reinstalled, and everything's looking good. And right now all I'm doing is going through and touching up the tines. The tines are by no means rusted through or anything like that, but you know how tines are, they get wear on them, and the hay beating against those tines will knock the paint off. And when you let it sit, then those tines start getting rusty. So I'm cleaning up the tines and putting a fresh coat of paint on them. And I realize that when I hay, that start tedding hay this coming summer, that some of that paint will get knocked off. But on the top of the tines and all, it will protect them, and it'll protect them over the winter. To get a coat of paint on them, I'm taking a wire brush and a drill and scrubbing off the rust off those tines and putting a fresh coat of paint on them. And other than that, it's coming along really good. Very pleased with this tedder so far, especially for what we paid for it, and to find one used in this good a shape. I'm really happy. So just a few minor things, and this thing will be ready for haying and season. And you know, now's the time. I talked about on the other video buying used equipment. Now's the time to buy used equipment. And also, right now is a prime time to be getting your hay equipment in top shape for early summer haying. So we're doing that. Also, going through this tedder and making sure everything's ready, and come haying season, all I have to do is just recheck the grease in the gearbox to make sure it's still good, which it should be. I found no leaks, so it will be just a matter of doing that and hooking it to the tractor and going. You know, waiting until right time to go start haying to start checking your equipment's probably a bad idea. When your hay's prime and ready, you need to cut it. You don't need to be working on equipment, you know, that you neglected to do through the winter. So now's the time. If you have a garage, get that equipment in the garage and get to work on it. If you don't, then choose your pretty days outside when you can be outside working on it, to get to working on it, get it all ready. So let's get to finishing up this. We like just a few things on the tines, and that's about it. Okay, folks, anytime you're putting tines on a tedder, or some people call them teeth, this one is not bolted on yet. I just got it hanging there. There is a right and a left, and you got to be careful which way you put these tines on. If you put them the wrong way, you could end up breaking them. So each basket has its tines going in a certain direction. And if you get them backwards, then, well, it could end up breaking a tine. So, but this tedder actually still has the decals, and this would be the right tine, and you can see it gives a description of which way they go. This would be the right, and over here is the left. So this one shows you which way to put your tines on. So we've got a few we painted yesterday that's ready to go on, so we'll get those installed. Okay, this time, and I can look at this one over here, so they could go either way, so we want to make sure we're getting these on the right way. And this one goes this way. And if you can see, the tine has an area right here that's bent and curved for the bolt and the seating washer, I guess you'd call it. It's a big square piece here, and this thing is tapered, so you got to make sure you get your right way. It's thicker back here than it is up here. So you want the narrower end toward the front to fit in there right. So, okay. Let's make sure we got this turned the right way. It goes right over the arm and fits in there just like that. Okay. Then we have a lock nut that goes on the bottom. And I will go ahead and tell you that because of the way these coils are, this is a little bit of a headache to get your wrench in there. But it's not bad. Just take your time and don't bust any knuckles. Just get it started and then we'll get a wrench on it. And these are 19 millimeter hex heads and nuts. Okay. Alright, I have a 19 millimeter socket here and a 19 millimeter wrench, and I wished I had a boxed in wrench, but I don't. All I've got is an open end of 19 millimeter. So, and we'll just tighten this time. Just like that. Okay, that time's on. You know, you don't want to over torque these things, but these things are spinning pretty fast and pushing that hay pretty violently. And you want to make sure that these things are tight and they don't come flying off. I could only imagine when these things comes off while it's at 540 RPM on the tractor when you're using it and one of them goes flying off. That could be a missile. So we want to be careful. Make sure, and before you ever use these things in the field, come summer, I'll take a wrench and a socket and go around and check every one of these just quickly. Stick a wrench on them and just give them a check to make sure they're all tight, that over the winter that, you know, they haven't, through temperature fluctuations or whatever, has somehow come a little bit loose. But we'll double check everything before we take it to the field, which shouldn't take, you know, just a couple of minutes, and that's well worth it for safety. Okay, here's one of our tines, and you can see the way they're bent. So someone correct me if I'm wrong, and I could very well be wrong. My understanding with these, and if you look at this, there's no set of left tines and no set of right tines. You can just buy a tine, and depending on which way you turn it will be which side it goes on. I don't think, at least for this tedder, you have to buy a left tine and then a right tine. I think you just buy the tine, and it depends on which way you turn it as to which basket it goes on. So I can see no difference in the tines on this tedder on the left and the right. They look identical, they're bent identical. It's just one's turned one way and one the other. So if I'm wrong, which is very, very possible, someone leave a comment and correct me. But I think I'm right. Somebody let me know. Okay, it's several days later, and we finally got a break from some rain today for me to finish up the whatever you want to call it. I wouldn't really call it a restoration. This tedder didn't really need restoring. Just some, we'll call it yearly maintenance. We're done with it. We got a good break in the weather today. We got lots of rain yesterday, and it was a good day to work inside. So yesterday I sanded down all the tines and that I lacked and got those done. And the tedder is ready to go to the field. As you can see, it's I would call this thing is in about as good a shape as a new one. I'm telling you, it is in fantastic shape. And we did went around it anywhere that had a little bit of chips of paint knocked off, where some rust could start forming and things like that. We sanded them down with a wire brush and touched it all up and got it to where it's literally almost as good as a new one. If I just about take it for a new one. If I went and looked at it, it looks really good. The grease cleaned up off of it real good. Everything cleaned up good. The guards, the one guard that was off has been reinstalled and with new bolts. And man, I can't wait to use this thing Ted and hay this coming year. Like I said earlier, if you are considering new hay equipment or adding some type of hay implement to your farm, and especially if you're considering going the used route, now's the time. Be out from now through January and February, really looking at hay equipment. Keep your budget in mind, and remember the do's and don'ts of buying used equipment. If it's a piece of equipment that gears run it runs off PTO, if somebody won't start that implement, hook it up to their tractor and hook the PTO to it and run it for you, walk away. Be kind about it if they're kind to you, and thank them for their time, and just let them know you're not interested in that particular piece of equipment and walk away. You know, even if it's something that doesn't have gears and works off of PTO, even if it's ground driven, like a side delivery rake or something like that, I'd still want to see that thing working, to know that all the gears on it through the ground driven part of it's working. And I still want to see that thing work. So if somebody's unwilling to hook something up and show it to you, thank them for their time and just walk away. But they are really good deals to be had in the used hay equipment market if you take your time, be really careful, inspect any equipment that you're considering as best you can. And there's some good equipment. You can buy small scale hay and equipment for a whole lot less money than new. Like I said, this tedder new is over $2,000. And you know, you can hunt around and find one like this one. We were really lucky to find one at this low of a price that looks almost new for the price we paid for it, which goes to prove that you can find small scale hay and equipment, or hay and equipment in general, on a budget if you're so inclined to put in the time and the effort to travel and go look at some things. And just bear in mind, you're probably going to go look at some stuff and you're going to end up walking away. And you're going to think, wow, well, I wasted a half a day and a half tank of gas and going to look at this thing and all. That's part of it. You got to be willing to accept that, and don't settle. Find what you want, and only settle for that and stay within your budget. That's a big deal on a small family farm. Stay in your budget. If you go way over budget, then all of a sudden your hay and equipment is really put you in the hole on your farm budget. So it's going to take you a long time of selling good hay to dig out of that. So just take your time, and there's good equipment out there to be had if you just take your time and look for it. Okie doke, thank you for being with us through our used hay equipment videos, and for being with us here on our tedder. Like I said, I don't think I'd really call it a restoration, but finding our tedder and the things we did to it to clean it up and get it ready for summer. This thing is ready to start tedding hay, and I'm looking really forward to hooking this to the Kubota this summer and tedding our hay. Make good hay even better. Again, thanks for being with us here at Cross Timbers Farm today. We really appreciate it. God bless, and if you haven't, we'd really appreciate if you'd subscribe to our channel. God bless and have a good evening.